the chatter. It's all good. If you want to note where you are, where you're from and what you do, that's great. We have some subject matter experts on the call. And again, I'm Sarah DeSilvi, Gravity co-founder and director of terminology. And I see some friends on here too. So I think we can almost get started. It's almost 4:03. We're almost there. Yes. Okay, here we go. Next slide. Welcome to the final end-to-end review call in our enhancement cycle. Thanks for joining. Everyone's muted upon entry, but we do talk a fair bit. Again, this is the last of our enhancement cycles of calls purely, and then next week, the meeting is literally next week where we do our complete consensus vote. If you have questions, ask, stop us, put something in chat to everybody and we'll try to integrate it. And just please do send chats to everyone, because if it's sent to me, I read it out loud as if it is to everyone, because I can't process all of the details as I'm facilitating. Next slide. Welcome any newcomers. If you want to put in who you are and where you hail from, that's fine. If not, we just welcome you to the group. So as a HL7 standards-based entity, we are required to follow HL7 operating guidelines, which includes following the antitrust practices. So anybody participating in the Gravity Project public calls has the responsibility to comply fully with federal and state antitrust laws. This includes not just direct adherence, but avoiding anything that might be construed as a breach of antitrust practices. Next slide. Same agenda as last time. Next slide. Just a couple updates here and there. Next slide. So again, we've had weekly meetings since February in terminology. Next meeting, just as an FYI, the 29th is our final public meeting. And usually what we do at Gravity terminology is go offline, because we have a lot of build work to do. Like all of the codes you all have identified as being necessary, our job is to submit them, and it takes a lot of work, right? So we go quiet for 2 months, and then we pick back up at the first Thursday in August. And so we'll see you back there. And we're not identifying an enhancements call being needed right now, so we'll just go back to our every other week meeting for new domains. But we'll see if there is significant enhancements work. We can always restart another call. The technical work stream, the next meeting is on May 28th, and it is part 2 of the discussion on program eligibility and social care program enrollment. We encourage one and all to come, even if you're not super technical, like your understanding of how things work in real life, social care practices, human service delivery, service coordination. That's all. Those stories are partly what helps us get things right. So please come to the technical call Wednesday, 1 to 2 Eastern Standard Time. And again, that's available. The link to the meeting is available on the Confluence in our upcoming meetings tab, but also on the HL7 conference call calendar. And then next week is a big day. It's a big week, because the quarterly implementation affinity meeting happens next week as well. And it's all about how closed referral standards decrease both patient and provider burden. And we have a presentation with Unite Us and Together Now, both leveraging FHIR service request standards, and I'm looking forward to seeing those standards applied to real life outcomes. Any questions on this? All right, next slide. Next slide. But what is Gravity? Just for anybody who does not know us yet, we're a representative and sustainable consensus community that's collectively driving social care data standards to support the goals of population health and health equity. But just recently revised. Nice little vision. Next slide. And then I'm really grateful for our members and partners. We couldn't do what we do without all of you. We say this every time. We have both financially supporting members and designated members who bring critical content knowledge. Again, specifically designated members focusing on community-based organizations and patient voices, all working from a social justice framework that we need to make sure we have the right voices in the room from a governance perspective, driving the work to be done and thinking of critical, strategic relationships and connections. So grateful for all the members, and noting in-kind members as well. We do have in-kind support from CMS and the American Medical Association and Civitas Networks for Health, in addition to the designated and financially supporting memberships. Next slide. We are just finishing our sprint section of the Gravity 2025 roadmap. So next week, we'll close out the work on all 3 of our spring domains and the enhancement cycle. We'll do a lot of build stuff and then come back and see you in the fall with food access, neighborhood safety, and access to green space. Knee deep in the ST 3.0 update. That's the eligibility and enrollment discussions is one of those activities that's being focused in 3.0, and then the affinity group next week too. So again, Gravity, just on the record, you can see June and July are quiet, no meetings, coming back the first Thursday in August. Next slide. We always try to level set on our principles, which are improving personal health outcomes, improving population health equity, ensuring personal control, designing appropriate solutions, ensuring accountability, and preventing, reducing, and remediating harm. Next slide. And Sarah's doing it all today. She's doing an amazing job. My partner, Sarah Bahal, you're doing the best. Thanks for all the links and everything. So part of what we're leaning into, and again, we're already trying to figure out what a new version of the base image there where those 4 circles looks like, because Gravity is not bound within these 4 circles anymore, right? So we're trying to figure out our new model for what we're doing, but everything in enhancements is pretty much on the left-hand side of the screen, right? Terminology support provision of services, terminology structures and solutions for program classification. So everything's on this left side of the screen, and there's a new version of this model that will come through and probably be ready like in the fall. Maybe we're working in community on a revision of this. It'll be part of the technical world, I think, technical and terminology combined. Corey can tell me, but we're already starting because we broke it. It doesn't, like, we busted out of this model a long time ago, and we have the social care voice co-design work to integrate as well. So coming soon to a slide near you, a new version of this. Next slide. All right, so here we are, final end-to-end review meeting. We have the sweetest little changes in Coding for Food, little teeny word changes, and that's it. It's like Katie can testify. It's just like little tweaks and maybe the addition of a cup. It's like very tiny tweaks. And then the vote is tomorrow. We're going to talk more about how to participate in the vote and how that works in future slides.
Next week, not
next
tomorrow.
week. Sorry, not tomorrow. I caught myself. You can tell it's been a day. But yes, next week, the 29th. It's right there. Okay, thank you. Next slide. So end-to-end review, we have a very narrowed time frame for end-to-end review for this cycle because the vote is next week and we need to have pens down, right? So if we don't have a steady document for all voting people to review prior to Thursday, it's problematic. So end-to-end review is a process that we've been in for weeks now, like actually a month plus. So if you have any other things to say, late-breaking concepts, and we did get the Teaching Kitchen Collaborative concept, Christina, so we're analyzing that, the juicer comment. But if there's anything else, it has to be submitted by end of day tomorrow, because we have to stop new stuff and lock it down. All right. And we ask ourselves, are there things missing? Are there things that need to be changed? Are there concepts that are necessary and should be removed? We did a little bit of all of this week with our subject matter experts across all of the work, including the 3 new domains and Coding for Food. Removing things, adding things, and changing things. Next slide. Okay, the vote. The vote, we highlighted this briefly earlier, but the vote occurs during next week's meeting. It's when Coding for Food and Enhancements and new domains all gather in one meeting for one purpose, and that is to vote. There are 4 ways to vote, but what's important to note is that there's an opportunity to vote on each element of the deliverable. You can vote on the Coding for Food concepts. You can vote on each new domain. You can abstain from anything you don't feel like you can weigh in on, right? So just know as you look at the vote, it's voting on a Google sheet, like a Google survey. You'll have an opportunity to abstain from anything you feel like it doesn't apply to you. But the 4 vote options are yes in general, right? Yes with comment, which is basically like yes and or yes but, right? So sometimes people want to offer positive comments. Sometimes people need to offer slight tweaks and changes. We are, even though we're having this very focused build, by nature, we're constantly revising and revisiting what we do to make sure it evolves and is fit for purpose. So if there's a significant comment change, it'll either be integrated after the vote by the subject matter experts immediately or in a future version of the deliverable. Formal objection also has to have a comment, but because we've been working in community since February, the early February months of this, it's expected that any formal, like in order to comply. My brain is a little tired. In order to work within the principles of consensus, that formal objection has to include a path to addressing whatever it's objecting to within the concerns of everybody else, right? You can't just blow it up. So you have to say, I formally object, and given the extent of consensus, I offer this path forward, right? So you need to kind of have a reconciliation or some kind of integration path included in that formal objection. Does that make sense? Otherwise, it's not consensus, because we've been doing this work for a very long time. End-to-end review was very formal and open to anyone. So by the time it gets to formal objection, you need to have a clear case for addressing everybody else's perspective. Good? Okay. Email any comment to gravityproject@hl7.org by June 5th. And if you need, Sarah B put it in the chat, but if you're not available for the meeting, you can request an absentee ballot just by emailing gravityproject@hl7.org, and Sarah or I, mostly the amazing Sarah, not me, Sarah Bahal, will send you an absentee ballot. Sound good? Go team, and you have until the end of the following day to submit that absentee ballot. So voting starts in the meeting, and you have 24 hours basically from the meeting end to complete your vote if you're voting absentee. All right. And then Sarah's logging any votes that come in earlier already. But all right. Any other questions? Sarah B, did I forget anything? We good?
You covered everything.
Okay. Sounds good. Thank you, Sarah. All right, next slide. On to content. I don't think there's any more questions. On to content. Okay, Coding for Food Phase II. I am so proud of all the Coding for Food SMEs and community. You guys are like the best. Okay, next slide. It's been such a great set of work. Phase 1 were submitted in January. Phase 2 will be part of the next cycle submission. Everything's available on the Confluence. Katie and Meg, it's just been, I'm going to raise my tea to you, my dear friends. Much love. Only 3 years of labor. And we'll keep communicating out to everybody about what happens after the submission. But very exciting. So phase 1 really about the food, like the food itself, and phase 2 about supporting services like cooking education and cooking and kitchen tools or kitchen supplies. Next slide. Again, just a huge shout out to the amazing Foodist medicine ecosystem leaders and Herculean folk who've guided this project, both from creation to developing practices, like how we're going to look for like members, this guiding advisory, just critical, lovely experts in the ecosystem who have been kind of grounding it ever since its inception. Next slide. And then we have all of our specific work group members who again had to apply for this, right? So everybody who, just like our terminology domain subject matter experts. We reviewed CVs, we reviewed applications, like it was very much a formal process. So just deep thanks to all the SMEs who took time out of their life to get this work done, and just brilliant experts, leaders in the field, just like visionary, wonderful folk. Incredibly grateful. Okay, amazing. Thanks to all of you. Next slide. I think we're on to content now. So we have our kitchen supplies, really have two core concepts. We have appliances and kitchen tools. And then we are going to have our final version available for review, and then the vote on those next week. Next slide. So only the littlest changes. We had said previously, trying to represent quality, that it was we used not previously used instead of new. And that felt great inside the work group because we all knew what we were talking about. When people, who were like naive to the concept in the work looked at that, they did not know what it meant. So if your secret shoppers say, we don't know what that means, we just went back to new. So biggest change here is not previously used across all of our concepts, is just new, because that's what we meant. And so we're just going to keep it simple. Next slide. There's only a couple changes here. Sandra Curtis, you are not here, but if you were here, I would tell you, so I don't think you're here. I would say we applied your recommendation to remove plastic as a default in the wraps, and now it's just food wrap. Thank you very much. And someone let her know. And then we neglected to include cups and tableware, so we added that too. Nothing else is changing. One of the things, like we have had recommendations, and this is what I was mentioning earlier, for additional tools. Because of the asterisks, other additional tools if appropriate after assessment, I do not know if we will add other specifications, because there were also tons of other specific tools we did not include, right? So the bar of what rises to a must-have tool gets hard when we think about all the cultural tools that we deem to be necessary. So we might just hold steady, even though we've gotten multiple requests for additional specific instruments, tools. Does that make sense? Because of the asterisks. Okay. Asterisks meaning there's no way we could list everything from a personal need, preference, cultural perspective. So we put the we put the asterisks there. Any other questions? Food wrap, not plastic wrap, and cups. Big change. and new as opposed to not previously used. All right, next slide. Same thing. There's two changes here. So although in our review of in the amazing team at Fullwell and Friends review of all the existing instances and operational occurrences of these concepts, although there was not one range, right, or large oven yet, we wanted to be clear when it came to what we were talking about, that we're talking about storage appliances, right? An additional concept might come along, because we just said large kitchen appliances. A range is a large kitchen appliance. That is not what we're talking about, right? So we put storage in this short name, because storing is the key thing that's happening here. And it really is focused on refrigerators and freezers. And both of those apply to medicine storage as well. So our concept, instead of changing our concept fundamentally to include other types of appliances, we just firmly grounded it in the fact that they're storage devices. Okay.
Yeah, the only color I would add, Sarah, that we also brought up as part of this discussion is that currently we haven't seen anyone in the country operationalize something like providing ranges or ovens, but we have seen refrigerators, and so trying not to get ahead of the field as it relates to this particular discussion.
We can always come back later. Yeah, but we wanted to make it really clear that this is what we are building for now, right? Not hypothetical futures. Okay, any other questions? Go team. Okay, next slide. The only change here is not previously used is new. And I think I think we just erased it here, but that's the only change. And small kitchen appliances stay small kitchen appliances because there's a lot of different appliances in there. One thing we analyzed but did not change was whether to change the word burner, because some individuals thought it might harken like a Bunsen burner, like like a flame burner. But we realized it is just a burner, and so we just left it a burner and felt comfortable with that. I think Katie and Meg, I think that's a sufficient summary of our conversation. Okay. Next slide. Okay, so on cooking education, teaching kitchen food pharmacies, the core concept is cooking skill classes. And I'm suddenly realizing I might have neglected to add the additional concepts that we discussed, but I'll voice over them because they're not part of the fundamental definition. The draft will be available shortly. Nutrition only concepts, such as including MNT, are addressed by other existing concepts. So it's nutrition only and nothing to do with cooking education. It's not covered here. And then food provision is handled in phase 1. All right, next slide. So I think, and then Sarah B, can you just quickly go to the next slide for me? I don't think I did this other, but yeah, okay. So go back, and then I'll voice over some things that I forgot to put here, which will be available on the Confluence page. So a lot did not change, right? So we presented some changes last time. So you have your education towards basic nutrition concepts and cooking skills development. Basic nutrition concepts are general nutrition concept, what people should eat more of, less of, and why. We added portion and serving size 2 weeks ago, and it stays. We added adaptations for cultural preferences and diet-related condition prevention and management. Those have been studied. There's no new skills development. We added including cost per unit and how to maximize $1 2 weeks ago. The significant addition is we talked about how in a whole set of things, we asked questions about requirements for implementation of this code. And I'm going to talk through those concepts. We talked about things like the unit of measure, and my apologies, this should be here. The unit of measure is not on here, but we agreed to align with the diabetic self-education, self-management program and do a 30-minute billable unit, right? And you can do multiples of that. We talked through whether to restrict how many units you can use or whether there's a base unit or a max, and we agreed to not go there, right? We talked through whether you have to be referred by a provider, and we said no. We talked through whether to specify, and the reason why we talked through all this is because the submission for this HCPC concept asks all those things. We talked through whether you had to have a diagnosis to implement this. And even though we had lots of conversation of really great, inclusive, preventive and management and remission diagnoses, we backed off of having a requirement for that at this time, right? So all of that is not included here. The positive thing, the clear thing is 30-minute unit, and then you do not need to be referred by a provider, and you do not need a specific condition to qualify. The reason why that comes up, does all that make sense? And it's again, all base Mirrors questions. The reason why that last bit is important is that we are working toward a objective of demonstrating understanding. And so pre and post assessments of whether or not you got there are a nice to have, but we're not necessarily ready there. And so we put into our evidence-based curricula, assessments are recommended but not required, because pre and post assessments of whether the person demonstrates understanding of the learning objectives are part of the evidence-based criteria. So we couldn't mandate pre and post assessments. We decided to just put it in as a comment in the curricula. Does that make sense? That's a lot of nerdy words I just said. Suffice to say, Pre and post assessments aligned with any kind of learning, a learning exercise usually includes them, are not required, but they're recommended. And they only will likely apply when you're using a set curricula. Because how do you do a pre and post without a common curriculum? You just can't. So I hope that makes sense. Any other questions? Again, not on here, but part of the concept is the 30-minute unit, right? That's the biggest thing, billable and 30-minute units to align with the diabetes self-management program.
As well as individual and group.
As well as individual and group to align with diabetes self-management program. Yes, ma'am. We're trying to make it as similar as possible, again, because the biggest change with people is process. And so if you do if you build the process for the new thing, aligned with how people are doing the old thing, it's easier. Okay, great. Fantastic. Okay, so when you're voting, this will be the concept we're voting on next week, plus that 30-minute edition that I did not include, and the group and individual. Next slide. Any questions? Yay! Coding4Food Phase II. All right, so just
Hey, Sarah, this is Rob.
Hey, Rob, hi. Welcome back.
Hey,
Hi.
yep. So just confirming, so these would all be submissions to HitPix?
Yeah, and we are doing mirroring concepts submitted into SNOMED as well.
The same concepts,
Yeah, like
Are-
same.
the same. Okay. We should talk about how that might be structured with regards to the kind of hierarchy that you've got and how that might work in SNOMED. But it sounds like the focus is to get them into HitPix so that they're billable units, right?
Correct. Absolutely. There's no question that that's the focus, but the runtime on that is like years to a year and a half.
Well,
Yeah.
that's kind of what I was wondering is what's the target usability kind of date?
Well, yeah, so for phase one, already submitted, and it's good that you brought that up. So for phase one that we submitted on the 2nd of January, we've been notified that due to staffing problems in the HICS team at CMS, they were not able to get our submission ready for the next meeting. And so then it's the first in line for the November meeting, right? But that's all that is. We acknowledge your submission. Like it's bumped to November, and that's the January one. So I don't know. We're going to submit, and then hypothetically, all of them could be heard in November if the staffing problem is addressed. But who knows?
Okay. All right. Given there's an interest in getting into SNOMED, and if there's that likely would be in the US edition, right? So that's our pathway in. Are you expecting to do that also like soon or?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, and for instance, like we just did that with phase one because whenever we submit to SNOMED, we meet with SNOMED ahead of time so that once we submit it, it's like check, right? So we do all of the modeling concerns, definitions, semantic clarity. Like the only change that we had to do, sorry, super nerdy right here, right now, friends, but welcome to Gravity Terminology Calls. The only change we had to do for phase one concepts is be really clear what we meant. Is if we can go back to can we go back to the intro slide because it's helpful.
So you've already submitted that first round to SNOMED also?
Yeah, and they've all been accepted. Yeah, so the only thing, the only thing of note here is that healthy groceries, because healthy is relative, had to be healthy groceries aligned with the dietary guidelines for America, right? Because our definition for healthy groceries is aligned with the US dietary guidelines. And so SNOMED, as you know, doesn't mind using vague words as long as it's bound to a method, right? So it's healthy groceries per the dietary guidelines for America. Everything else is accepted as it is. Medically tailored meals, produce prescription, medically tailored groceries was already in. No, medically tailored meals was already in. Medically tailored groceries and healthy groceries per the dietary guidelines for America. So the cool thing about that is that as we wait, because there's states that want to use these like now, right? And there's like the hungry for the concept and the standard and any kind of code, similar to how like New York is using SNOMED codes, all kinds of artistry in the background to get a billable concept, but in the front, the SNOMED code is the semantic consistency for implementation. Does that make sense? Sorry, I hope.
It does. Okay.
But that's why
All
we're
right.
doing both, right? Aiming for HICPICS, immediate SNOMED, onward.
Okay.
Go team. Okay.
Sounds good.
Okay, yay.
Thanks.
And it's nice to have you back. I missed you.
I've kind of been around, but you're right. I am now back in the United States.
It's good to have you back. Okay, so now I think that's coding for food set, right? So next week is the consensus vote, right? After the vote, the Gravity team goes into mission submission, right? We'll do all of the Mirror submissions to try to get them in by the deadline. And then we will work with SNOMED on the SNOMED submissions as well. And the SNOMED submissions include like our full intervention taxonomy. So education about medically tailored groceries, refer to medically tailored grocery program, right? And that way, all the labor and activities surrounding the provision are also able to be codified, which is just per our process from a labor transparency perspective. Okay. Yay! And so if you were just coding for food and you have no desire to stay on for the brief updates on the next period of like bit of things. Oh, Rob, this is very you, this next topic. Bye, Katie. Bye, Meg. Bye, Coding for Foods.
Can I ask a quick question about timeline?
Yeah.
What you were saying before about the meeting, like the June meeting, I guess that we will not be able to, or CMS will not be reviewing the phase 1 submissions. And you said maybe phase 1 and phase 2 would be reviewed together at the November meeting. Do you have any sense when over the next, 5-ish months, we might find out whether the phase 2 submissions will be reviewed in November, or is that just a big question mark?
It is a big question mark. I want to say, though, that the more we talk about these things being necessary and agreeing on these concepts in the ecosystem, it's kind of like evidentiary base for CMS. You know what I mean? Like, so we are going to be creating a little like what we came to, like one pager, and then we can help create momentum by asking for it over and over and over again. From all of our different perspectives, right? And it pays to be a squeaky wheel in this stuff. So welcome to Team Squeaky.
I guess to be that squeaky wheel, then, do you have any suggestion? I mean, I'm also thinking like whether it's broader members of the Teaching Kitchen Collaborative or just others who are working in this space, like how can others who are not on this call be squeaky wheels, if at all, to try to get that review happening in November?
So once the vote is done, we are going to work on a little like coding for food summary findings with definitions and next steps brief, like a quick little 1-pager, 2-pager maybe. And then that can get disseminated across the world, including like how to speak to it, including maybe tips and tricks and so Christina, you can spread that across all of your friends. Sound good?
Okay.
Yeah. And then to the other piece, like I think for the May meeting that we didn't make it into, people found out at like the start to middle of April, whether they made it into the May CMS meeting. It's not a ton of heads up. It feels pretty black boxy once it's submitted to CMS, but now that they are no longer in a communications freeze, hopefully we'll have a more open door to be that squeaky wheel, and we'll certainly give support to groups who want to help us do that, because it would be incredible to get all of our code submissions reviewed in November.
Agreed. Okay. Thanks, everyone. Appreciate it.
And Katie and I are the primary submitters of reference in Maris. So Katie and I both get all the information and updates of any status changes. So it makes communication easier. Because if you're just relying on me, it can get problematic. We know that. All right. Any other questions on coding for food? So proud of y'all. Yay. Woo. All right. So now we're going to move on to other, closing out our enhancements work and just segueing into something, Rob, I think you are responsible kind of for this next topic in our in the nicest way possible. Next slide. We are still socializing the need that we have to update LOINC document types. We're trying to bring this around to different HL7 work groups, and we're at least going to make sure that we bring it here. So to align with US core, Gravity has to reference LOINC document types in the observation profile. Rob, again, you knew all of this. We asked for the variance due to lack of sufficient social care documents, but instead, because of our friends being super smart, we were tasked instead to enrich LOINC document types. Like, so if there are not the document types we need, why we are makers of language, so we need to make those document types. But the first step really is enriching this knowledge model called the LOINC document ontology, which is going to help us ground all those different document types. The LOINC document ontology is a special set of LOINC codes that are built on a framework for naming and classifying the key attributes of clinical documents. They provide consistent semantics for documents engaged between systems for many uses. So next slide. We analyzed the LOINC document ontology for relevant attributes for our future submissions, and we are going to be working on filling those. So we have a few different critical first analysis like absences, social care as a subject matter domain, community health worker as a role, community-based organization as a setting. Those first three ones are the most obvious ones that rose to light, because then once we have those, we can start creating LOINC documents based on those concepts. But anything else to say? Corey, you spoke well to this last time. Rob, you know that this is the answer to the lack of variance. Susan, our amazing friend, Susan Matney, once she's back from her lovely tour of Spain after the HL7 working group meeting, is going to help us get these forward. Sounds like no questions. Okay.
Nothing to add, Sarah. Thank you.
Okay, fantastic. And if Rob has no questions, that's great. Okay, next slide. So we have lots, again, enhancements topics. All of these are going to be part of not all of them, but most of them are going to be part of the vote next week. So we're having one final review. Next slide. Next slide. So our program enhancements had really three core areas. So we created a lexicon of human and social service programs so anybody in the ecosystem could see the concepts we've made. We're working on that open consensus program classification of Gravity programs. We finished it, at least a final draft, and that draft is in review with a couple key stakeholders. So we're going to review what we're voting on next week today. And then we're going to review our terminology step for documenting program enrollment as part of the vote for next week as well. Next slide. So part of what we've done is we did the lexicon of human and social service programs so that we could see all the programs we have and all the programs we don't have. We have a few core gaps, really lots of children's programs, grocery delivery, changing our free vehicle donation program to be clearer. So these are just the first passes. And then Corey Smith, I already elevated the ones we got from the National Association of Chronic Disease Directors because it was easy to do that. On the next slide, you can see additional program gaps that were sent to us as part of a recent meeting we had with the National Association of Chronic Disease Directors. These, again, were already included as program types within our program classification, so they're very, very relevant. And so the specific national general concept program are very appropriate findings within our program gap analysis. And again, this came from a meeting that we had just recently with the National Association of Chronic Disease Directors, because the general consensus is both in social care and in public health, chronic disease prevention and management are enrolled in program standards are going to be very, very critical, right? So whether you're trying to document whether patients enrolled in an evidence-based arthritis program as part of their prevention, or the completely evidence-based year-long national diabetes prevention program, lifestyle change program. That one is all over the country. Enrolled in it is a key part of understanding, the programs that are helping people prevent and address disease and risk. So these are 4 programs as part of our analysis, our program classification work and our analysis of programs. Any questions on this? Corey, I tried to have rapid turnaround. This is as rapid as I could get. All right. Again, all of these should be known to all of you, and they definitely are facets within the classification that we created. There's places for these. Next slide. Any questions on the programs that came up in our program analysis of gaps? Again, part of our program classification work. Okay, next slide. This is the enrolled in program focus. Next slide. So we recognized a need to kind of meet individuals where they are and develop enrolled in program concepts for really like the most significant, nationally representative, evidence-based, associated with outcomes programs, right? Not every program, but the biggies like home delivered meals program or SNAP or WIC or diabetes prevention program. Again, those ones that are persistent, longitudinal, evidence-based, associated with outcomes. So we are doing an initiative to develop enrolled in concepts just for those. Next slide. So what we have done here, because it's fairly robust, is just post publicly on the Confluence our analysis of those initial programs that meet this criteria. Again, evidence-based, longitudinal, associated with outcomes, and national in scale, right? And the programs that we decided to do enrolled in, they're all, you can see them in the Confluence. So what we'll be voting on next week is the publicized presentation of the initial programs that we are going to build enrolled in concepts for. We can always add additional concepts over time. We have a meeting tomorrow with our friends at the VA because we have built in our partnership with the VA on the veterans domain, we built the terminology for every program in the VA suite of programs, right? So all of the programs in the benefits, VA benefits program and the social work program, that was part of our work with the VA in 2021, I think it was. So we're going to meet back with them and see what of their programs they want, if any, to be included in the enrolled in initiative. But they always lead that, and we just, support them in that work. But we'll be meeting with them tomorrow. Okay, any questions on this? Again, what we will be doing, the product has been posted on the Confluence for some time. It's our analysis of what initial programs need an enrolled in concept. Again, nothing in the VA set is being built until the VA tells us, because we just do what they ask us to do because we care about them. All right, does this make sense? Okay, next slide. Again, thanks. It's kind of a review as we head into the vote next week. Next slide. My dog is snoring so loudly behind me. Oh my gosh. I'm so glad you can't hear it. It's so impressive. It's really impressive. She's just a sweet old lady. All right, so program classification. We're almost there. Okay, next slide. What we are going, this slide gets repeated twice because of where we're at with the classification and kind of like what we have to do next. It's actually not that dissimilar from our protective factors work. So the goal of the program classification work was to develop this open classification of social care programs for the purposes of navigation and connection to services. And then we know we want to codify the concepts, and we know we want it published in an open format for use. We haven't determined a lot of where this is happening. So we have some work to do, but we always do that work of submitting and fitting things in. So when we vote on the next week. We're going to be voting on the requirements we need to meet and the concepts and the relationships of the classification. And then we will do all the work that we normally do, trying to figure out what terminology they're going to go in, how they get modeled and represented. And maybe we can continue that work in the fall. But the work that the SMEs have done is on the concepts and the relationships, right? So that's what we're voting on next week. And we've agreed upon these requirements for some time. Does that part make sense? Okay. Next slide. And again, the key thing that we've been working on are those groupers, which are the synthesis of grouping concepts across each of those self-stewarded classifications, the one EPIC had, Find Helps, Unitas's, 211 HSIS, right? Everybody merging together into some high-level concepts, which represent no one's original concepts. There's a lot of marrying that had to happen. Included in the classification is any gravity program, because we could identify that because it's open in consensus. Hidden from the classification are all of the 211 concepts. We had the honor of having 211 as a subject matter expert. They're staying with us. We're working on some population tags right now, which is super fun. I can talk about that next. But because of IP, intellectual property, the 211 concepts can't be represented in the classification unless you have a license. But it's all in there. It's all built in by design, and it's so gorgeous. And 211 did so much great work. And so all of the groupers we have and the gravity concepts behind the scenes, 211 integrates and marries with all of it. So it's pretty great. And then the only other thing I'm going to note, and I just said this kind of, is that in our program concepts, we stripped any population-specific elements from those concepts because there's so many different population subtypes of programs in community, and we are representing a population. We're working on a brief initiative to develop population tags that align with common core data elements with US Core and US CDI. To enable the tagging of programs with helpful, relevant, and already standardized concepts. More on that to come. But by stripping population tags out of the programs, we then had to agree on how to tag specific programs for specific populations. So we're diving deep into that now with all of the nerds who do that type of thing. More to come on that soon. Does that part make sense? That if we stripped populations from the programs, we'd have to create standards for tagging population relevant concepts. I think everyone's listening. And even though we know this is for connection and navigating to and connection to programs, we know that roughly those same population tags become part of eligibility and enrollment, right? We are not working on these concepts to support eligibility, but if you have a program that is meant for a population, those same population tags are what you need to identify for eligibility assessment. So it's like a secondary thing. I hope that makes sense. All right, I think we're doing good. Next slide, quiet crew today, quiet crew. So what we did in phase 1 was food, transportation, housing, utilities, employment, material goods, social connection, engagement, physical health, mental health, substance use, and legal help. Phase 2, financial assistance, direct care, technology access, safety and disaster services, and navigation services. So those collectively represent all of the concepts in the previous integrating classifications. Not all the concepts in the 211 HSS catalog, because it's massive, but specifically the ones that were critical for this health, social care, navigation, and connection to services use case. All right, next slide. We're getting there. So we completed. It's been stable. The final draft has been on the Confluence and stable. It's been sent out for stakeholder review. Interestingly, I was just communicating with one of our stakeholders who wanted to review, which is the 211 EPIC Collaborative, which is this multi-state collaborative, which works on mapping 2-in-1 concepts into the EPIC taxonomy. And interestingly, because EPIC is committing to using the classification, and 2-in-1 already built in all the mappings by design in our classification, the 2-in-1 EPIC collaborative is like, oh, well, you've already done the work that we do. So they are going to be reviewing the names, grouper names, but again, it's really, by having 2-in-1 integrate early and consistently into the mapping of 2-in-1 into the classification, we definitely have standardized that as well, which is fantastic. Any other questions here? Consensus vote, again, going to be represented concepts and structure. We're voting on these grouper concepts that have been stable for some time and the classification. And then we already agreed on all the requirements. Sound good? It's been a year. 2 hours every week for a year. So I know I don't see any of the SMEs from that work on the call. But if I can tell you how significant an investment, that's from each of our SMEs, so that's 2 people from pretty much each organization for 2 hours each week for a year, right? Huge. A huge effort, and just incredibly grateful to 2-in-1 LA, Unite Us, EPIC, Find Help, and 2-in-1 San Diego for investing that an immense amount of time and expertise. And we got there. So, all right, so we're voting on the concepts and structure next week. I think that's it. Next slide. I think we're good. Oh yeah, so this is the requirements, right? So we already, I told you I was going to repeat this. This is just what we set out to from the beginning. It's been unchanging. So this is what's going to happen next. We're going to try to develop the concepts and terminology, publish the classification for use, and create the program concepts as well, so that we can plug them into the classification. Sound like a plan? So quiet today. All right, next slide. All right, friends, I think this is it. Next slide. Yes, next steps. An hour-long meeting. All right, enhancements work. Whew. Coming to a close of the spring. So next meeting is May 29th. As we mentioned, if you're an enhancements heavy person and you just want to vote on enhancement stuff, Coding for Food, and the enrolled in program concepts and the classification, great. Each of those is going to have an independent vote. You can vote for or abstain from any of those. And then we'll also be voting on new domain work. So those the 3 domains we worked on this cycle: racism, toxic stress physiology, and protective factors and strengths. All of that coming soon to you in a massive vote next week. Any other questions? I feel like if there's any evidence of how busy I've been over the last month, Sarah's with me everywhere. So she and I, so much meeting. Thank you so much for coming. Please come next week. And if you need an absentee ballot, it's been a day. Write gravityproject@hl7.org and we will send you one. And we will see you. Thank you, Jonathan. We will see you next week. Go team. Language makers, Lego makers. Have a lovely Thursday and enjoy your extra half-hour time off.